our monthly federal programs open office hours. Our topic this month is on the compliance of the monitoring system. My name's Diane Neal. I'm the Assistant Director here in the Office of Federal Programs. I hope you've enjoyed our sessions that we've provided this year. This is just really an opportunity for us to quickly just cover anything that's on the subject that we have for that month, anything that's new or just some navigating and review. These are very informal type of sessions. Try to get away from the formal PowerPoints and all that and just kind of be, kind of like just a talk about what's going on, what's up, what you should really be looking at right now and doing. And then leaving it up to you to be able to ask your questions of us during this time. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you about navigating and getting into the compliance system. And then what are some of the key pieces that you'll want to be sure that you use or you do each year with the system. And the three different types of tiers that we have. For most of you, I'm going to assume that you're on a self-survey, because if you're on a desk review or an on-site, hopefully you've already have touched base with your consultant and you are already working on those things, because your consultant will walk you through pretty much most of the step to help you get to a completed compliance by the timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera and switch the screen so that you can see my screen, and we're going to go into the monitoring system. I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's now set up, and then we're going to go and I'm going to show you some of the forms that you want to kind of use each year. Once you put in or invested your time in completing those forms, and it's just kind of updating them each year for your compliance. So. Okay, are you able to see my screen? Randy, is my screen up and you can see this? Yeah. All right, so you want to go into My Ohio ID and go to your My Workspace and launch the Ohio ID App Store. For those of you who may not be aware of it yet, compliance has moved. So you're still going to see the old compliance icon there, but that's going to be for your archived compliance systems. You're going to, if you go in there this year, you're not even going to be able to find the self-survey or the questions for this year. You're going to need to scroll across, and you're going to want to go into the new monitoring tracking system, which is here. And then, of course, launch. It should populate then to a page that looks like this. On the side, it's going to have all the different programs that you may have compliance or monitoring with, or you have access to for compliance and monitoring. You're going to want to go into the one that says Consolidated ESEA Grants. And for you, it should populate with your district information already on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and pick on one of my friends again and just pull up theirs. If you haven't, type in your district's name and then select it from the drop down. And you'll need to hit search. Once you do that, your district's going to populate below. You want to click on your district name. And it's going to show you the compliance or the monitoring surveys that you have underneath the consolidated ESEA grant. So this district here had a McKinney-Vento monitoring, and they're also doing the self-survey for the consolidated ESEA. Some of you may have desk survey and self-survey. That's for if you had an on-site last year and you have a follow-up on an item from your on-site last year, then you would only have the desk for that one item, and then you would have the self-survey or those items. This part here, if it doesn't show what's accurate for you, there is a glitch here, or on the second page, it'll show where it's not started. You're going to want to go ahead and not worry about that. They are still working on that. If you haven't started your survey yet, this is where you're going to do it on this screen. You'll have a drop down to change it. And you do need to make sure that you hit the little save button so it'll save your status. So you're going to click on the survey you want to look at, and then the questions will populate below. So you're going to notice that there's a little bit different this year. For one thing, we do have for the self-survey, the first question makes sure that you understand that even though some of the questions may say to upload or describe, in a self-survey, you don't do that within the system. You're only going to do that yourself for your own files. So if you, as you're creating your files of evidence for this, you're going to want to upload or provide those items within your own files so that you have them then on file for in case you have an audit here in a year or two on these funds. And those audits would not be from our office, but they would come from the state auditor's office, grants management. They do audits after the funding year. And of course, if we ever have an audit from the U.S. Department of Education or the Inspector General receives a complaint, they would go back into these. So that's why as you're doing their self-survey, you're checking off that, yes, I've done this. Yes, I've done that. This is you can think of it as your checklist of things done to do. So as you go through, that's your first question, is we want to make sure you don't need to upload this into our system, but you do need to have this stuff in your own files. So as you can see, we have it for each of the funds as normal. And as you click on, it'll have your groupings or your different sections of each of the grants then will go across. So the first section is for questions 1 through 5, and it's the parent's right to know. If I click then here on number 6, it's going to go to the next group of questions or section, which is your building eligibility allocations section. And so it goes across up here with the questions. Each one is a different section. There we've got school-wide programs, targeted assistance. If you have a targeted assistance building, those questions will show up. If you don't, you won't get those questions. So you may even notice that the numbers, you have skipped numbers even in the sections. That's because based on your district, that question would not apply to you. If you don't have targeted assistance, you're not going to have questions 12 and 13. Even on the building eligibility page, if you don't have the CEP, you're not going to have questions that pertain to that. So you're going to go through your Title I questions across, and then when you're done with that, you'll go to your next section over here, and it'll have your questions then for your next funding application. On the side here, you're going to have a section for each of your funding applications, and there's a couple of sections that we created because these sections are across the funds. For example, one of them is the properly licensed teacher or staff. That question previously had been in each one of the funds or of the applications. We pulled that out and made it as one section for your federally funded staff. So when you go here, this is where you're going to have the federally funded spreadsheet that we're going to ask for, and we're going to ask for it just that one time then, instead of asking for it 10 times during your session. If it, we're also going to ask for other items on this, such as your schedules for those staff. That's those staff members who are federally funded. Do you have that? The other one that is also was pulled out and is separate is the evidence-based intervention, because there's evidence-based intervention questions that were in Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV, all had sections that required evidence-based. We pulled those out so that you're going to just upload it one time in here. And I'm going to show you the form for this and the federally funded spreadsheet. And finally, in this grant, then we've pulled out all of the fiscal documents, and I've asked you to upload those here. And these are your fiscal records or your documents. There's two types that we want. We want your payroll records for your federally funded staff. It's called, in the older system, it was called the ACT report. And we want that sorted by your staff names. And then the other one is your expenditures report, or what we would call a BUDLED in the old system. And you only need to put on the BUDLED is those accounts that weren't covered in the ACT report. So that would be your 400 objects, your 500, 600, and 800 objects, which we have in the description here. I recommend that you give this to your treasurer and you tell them this is what I need. Very specific. You can even copy this off and say, this is what I need you to run for me so that I can put it in my files. The only other place that you're going to see where we're going to request or ask for fiscal records is up in your Title I, and we do ask in your school improvement grant, we do ask for what's called the building budget reports, which shows what was budgeted for each of the buildings, because those grants are building specific grants that buildings have allocations. We have to verify that the building budgets did align with the amounts that they were supposed to have received. So we call it a BUD sum. That's what the old system called. Other than that, it's going to be a report that shows how you budgeted your funds for each of the buildings in whatever system you're using. So that's kind of the way the system is outlined. What you would need to do then to complete your self-survey, or even if you're on a desk or an on-site, is go through each of these items, and as you collect it for your evidence, or on a desk review or on-site, you upload it in the system. You're going to check it off as you do it. And if you can see, it automatically saves now. We don't have to go down and do a save button or anything. As soon as you click something or you check out of the box, the system is going to save for you. So the only place that you really need to worry about that save button is where I showed you at the beginning, where you change your status. You need to hit save. So these are each of the sections. This is how the system is laid out. So now what I want to do is, before, we used to have a nice little section up here that had all of our forms and our manuals for you. This system does not have an area for us to house those things for you. We have, on many of the questions, created links to the forms. However, we do have them all in one place for you to find all of the forms for FY21. So I'm going to navigate now over to where there's two places you can go to find those forms, and I want to show that to you. I don't know if you've noticed this before, but I've gone back to the tab that says monitoring. And if you notice back up here, right up here in the left-hand corner, it'll take you back to that page that has all your apps on it. So you don't have to go all the way back and sign in again. And in order for me to find the documents, I'm going to go to the CCIP document library. And in the CCIP document library, there is a section that's called compliance. And what we've done, and if you've noticed, we started doing this last year, we've started creating just an FY21, FY22 by year for things that are coming out every year. We have new updates or guidance on it. So you're going to go to your FY21 monitoring. Those are all right in here together. And this is going to have for you the samples, like your parents' right to know sample letter is here, or section. It's going to have, if you have that new form for non-licensed teacher, you want to make sure you have a copy of that with your letterhead on it. You know, some of the other documents that we recommend that you use. But two of the documents that I really want to, well, let me show you a couple other things. The manuals, I want to show you their manuals are here. It'll show you how to navigate into the monitoring system. So there's one for the on-site and desk review manual, and then there's the FY21 self-survey manual that's here. There's also a video that walks you through getting into the monitoring system. So if you get a little lost and you're not sure, you can go to the video also and help you get started. The two forms that really, if you take the time and invest in getting them completed, then you can just update them every year with whatever new information you have. So the first one is your federally funded spreadsheet, and it has changed this year. So I'm going to open it up. Wants to go on my other screen, even though I keep telling it I want you over here. All right, so we have separated out each of the different grants on tabs down here below for you to use. And you're only going to complete those tabs then that where you actually have received funds in and then you hired staff. The instructions are here on the first tab. So once you complete it, for example, for Title I, you're going to see that these areas are similar to what we asked for before. You want to make sure that you put in your teacher's name, and these are your teachers who are hired and paid for out of this fund, whether they're partially paid or they're 100% paid. So you're going to add your Title I staff, your teachers that are paid out of Title I. That's going to be those in your district, those that you provide for your non-publics. Okay. If you have after-school tutoring program or a summer school program, those teachers you want to add to this sheet as well. You'll want to put in what their license number is, which building they were providing the services for or to, and what their position or their role was in the district, and how much a percentage of their salary was paid out of the funds. The other important pieces to include is the grade spans that they taught, and if they were teaching only particular subjects. If they're a parapro, you need to put in on this section what actually made them qualify, what gave them their ESEA qualify status. And there's over here in the blue, it gives you the different options. So now you can navigate through these tabs down below, or you can also navigate on the side here. So either one are quick little links that you can use to go through the different tabs that are on here. for each of the funds. And we even have one for ESSER grant because those do need to be properly licensed as well. So if you have teachers that you've paid out of ESSER 1, you're going to want to add them to this tab. So that's one form that once you invest in it, you know, typically your staffing doesn't change that much from year to year. You're just going to update it with the new staffing and take off any old staff that were no longer being funded through those funds. And then just upload the new one into the New Year's monitoring or into your files. The other form works very similar to that, and it is the evidence-based spreadsheet. However, it is a lot different than what it was last year. Oh, which one is it? Let's see. Okay, there we go. So on this file, the instructions are here. And it also has the different levels of evidence. We have examples because in each of the grants, there's evidence-based is only cited in several places. For example, in Title I, your evidence-based parent involvement strategy. Title IIA, evidence-based for hiring and retaining staff. ESEA says your instruction or your intervention strategies, evidence-based improvement and interventions. So for Title IV, evidence-based is only cited underneath behavior, social, emotional well-being. So we gave you samples of how to complete the form for each of the areas so that you can look at it. Then on each of the tabs, you're just going to complete it underneath your sections. So for example, what was your evidence-based intervention or improvement strategy in Title I, and what's your parent and family engagement strategy in Title I that you've used. For references, you can just copy the link to the reference that you use to determine the level, especially if it was a clearinghouse that identified the evidence-based level. If it was a research, you'll just copy or the link or the reference to the research that you used to identify what level. If you have a level 4 strategy, you want to also include in this description how you're going to evaluate its effectiveness. So this is another form that once you have it completed, it's just a matter of saving it each year and then updating it for your files. So those are the files of the records that I want to show you and go over with you. So another place that you can find, and we're very excited about this change. We've been working on it now for the last year, is the Ohio Department of Ed's webpage that we have for federal programs. In the past, it was always a little bit challenge for us to be able to find our webpage. It kind of was buried. Now it's a little bit more obvious so that you can go to our webpage to find resources that we have. So if you go to the Ohio Department of Education's website, and if you just type in federal programs, it should pop up underneath as the first item under your search. You're going to see our new web page. Underneath it, it's going to have icons or boxes for you. Programs is for each of the grant programs. You have our district supports, the EdSteps projects. Here's information about allocations and operations. And then we have a section that's simply for compliance. If you click on that box, it's going to take you to our compliance page. And along with explaining our risk monitoring and the 3 different levels or the 3 different types of monitors that we do, We also have below it all of those items that I just showed you in the document library as well. So they're available on our web page. Eventually, this will be where you'll be going. The document library will be the repository, but when we get to Ed Steps, you'll be going through the web page to get to most of your resources eventually. So, all right, so let's talk about the timeline. If you're doing a self-survey, the self-surveys need to be completed by June the 30th. If you're on a desk review or an on-site, you need to work with your consultant on when that needs to be completed. They will have a timeline for you for each of the steps. We try to have all of our on-sites and our desk reviews done by the end of May in case there's any issues, so that we have time then to work with the district on a corrective action plan. So those are the dates. It's if you notice, the self-survey was moved back again to the June 30th date for districts. We'll see how that works. I think with our risk monitoring, we'll be able to still get the data that we need so that we can do our risk monitoring within the timeline that we need by moving the date back. So I have talked for about 30 minutes, which is all I'm supposed to talk. And I'm going to open it up for you to ask questions. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat. Don't see any raised hands. I must have answered every question. Thank you, Elizabeth. Don't know why it would say that. I'll let Scott know so he can get that updated. It is June 30th. So do we need to upload those fiscal documents even if we are in the self-survey? No. For the self-survey, you do not upload any documents into our system. You only upload those or keep them in your filing system, however you're filing all your documents for your federal programs.
Diane, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, Title 3 questions are coming up on our self-survey, but we don't get Title 3 funds. I always hate putting NA, but that's okay. That's not going to be a warning for me or anything like that, right?
Correct. Now, are you in a consortium for Title 3?
No.
You received no Title 3 funds at all, but yet those questions came up for you.
That's correct.
You shouldn't have received those questions. What's your district?
East Muskingum.
Okay, let me check real quick. Because I got to get, the system shouldn't be doing that. That's one of the things we're trying to avoid, you getting questions where you have to go in but yes, just go in and put NA on all of those.
Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't, because I don't want something to trigger something else. So, okay, thank you.
Yes, I know. But it shouldn't. But let me check to make sure before I tell you definitely. Sometimes let me quit sharing that part. Yeah, there's no Title 3 at all.
And the same was with Title 5B. We don't have 5B either, and it showed up also.
That's odd. Yeah, it should not have showed up either. So just put an NA.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I will let the IT team know about it. All right, thank you for letting me know. See, we don't know on our end because we only see what we see. So unless districts let us know about things, sometimes we're not even aware that it's not working the way it's supposed to. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I think that people are becoming more comfortable sharing those things with you guys because you guys have been very, upfront and saying we're not the police. We're not trying to, cause problems. We're trying to work together with you. So I think that that's a benefit to you guys that you have done this year. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Candace, are you there? Could you put a link in the chat for the video? For
Sure.
this, we've had a request for that. So, are there any other questions on the compliance system or self-survey or anything else? Any other burning questions that you have? I know a lot of you have started working on your plans. For cohorts 1 or cohorts 2 and 3, we can also answer those questions. It doesn't have to just be questions on compliance. Catch us while you can,
Diane, do you know, this is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well today.
I have a question outside of this compliance. I hope you can answer because we were just informed that there were new allocations for the ARPs, the ESSER 3 funds. Is that accurate if I look in the document library?
For ESSER 2, the ESSER 2 allocations came out about a month and a half ago. And then ESSER 3 allocations will be coming out the first part of May. We received those just this last week from the U.S. Department of Ed. And then we are now working on the formulas so that we can get those funds distributed to districts.
Okay, because yes, I know there was a CCIP note that went out in the initial allocation. And then when I look at it today, we're about $100,000 lower than the initial from that initial email. And that's accurate?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Should we expect any other changes with regards to that? Do you think it could change again?
I wouldn't expect to. What we usually, when we do the originals, it's on the estimates that we receive. And then they come out later and they give us our final amounts. Okay. So.
Diane?
Yes.
I don't know if Karen or Morgan is on the call, but I think with the ARPA funds that they only release 2/3 of those funds to us until districts do the plan and the state does an ESSER plan, and then we'll get the remaining 1/3. So I think the district will get the total amount. It's just not released yet because they haven't done the plan.
That's correct. That's true too. I forgot about that part of it, Chantel.
I did know that, but yeah, it is a difference of about 100,000 for us. So, okay, that's what I needed to know so I can tell the people and the powers that be.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Chantel, for reminding me of that piece. Very helpful.
Hi, Diane. This is Amy.
Hi, Amy.
I have a question about the One Needs. This is my first time experiencing all the CCIP things. So, and I do greatly appreciate these sessions. It's been great. So we have our team is completed and sent to the planning tool. Our One Needs. Is there anything else I need to click on with the One Needs? Or once it says One Needs is complete, you guys take over?
Well, you take over in the planning tool then, but when you finished your One Needs assessment, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Did you want to make sure that you not only selected your priority need, but you also selected additional improvement areas because those become your strategies in your plan, or at least the topic for your strategies. If you've done that and now you've sent those over, you've completed your One Needs assessment. Now you can go over and start working in the planning tool and building the plan from the outline, the One Needs assessments provided.
Yep, and we've done that, and I just submitted today the one plan. So we've got our strategies, our SMART goal, student measure, adult measure, evidence base. We got our fiscal resource, everything's in there. I did notice that I clicked on one of these strategies, and then I couldn't change the titles of them. I didn't like how I wrote the title, but once it's done, it was done. I'm like, oh crap! So I couldn't do that, and then I clicked on another one, and I couldn't delete that. So there's one in there that I wrote a note going, this is an accident. I can't, there's no trash can for me to delete this strategy. So there's no strategy attached. So I didn't know what else to do with that.
So if you want to take out a strategy that you have in there, you would go back into the one needs assessment and uncheck that box on that priority tab page. Okay. And then resubmit it, and it would take it off of your plan.
Okay.
If you want to add an additional strategy, you would go back in and select a topic for that strategy, and then send it over. So you can't delete the topic section up there because that comes over from the one needs assessment. So you're going to have a strategy under curriculum assessment. You just describe your strategies then in the text box.
And I separated the strategies under each. Was that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Because at first I put them all in one bit. It said strategy, and I put 1, 2, 3 all in the same box. I'm like, that doesn't seem right, because I don't see the word plural like strategies. So I just separated. I deleted those because those I'm allowed to delete. Those gave me a trash can, the strategies. So those I could delete, and then I just separated them all out. So hopefully the organization of it, hopefully it's clean the way you want it, but I don't know. So a little nervous.
Yeah, you can always have your federal ask them to go in and look at it to see if it looks the way it should.
Okay.
Or if you want me to, to quickly look at it, I can here and see. But yeah, we're more than happy to look at it. Were you able to go in and on the to look to see? Are you in cohort 1?
Correct.
So did you look to see what all offices would be reviewing your plan on the spreadsheet?
Yes, I believe I did. I don't have that handy right now, but yes.
Okay. And then in the guide, it would tell you exactly what would be the criteria that they might be looking for. Like if it's the, if you have homeless education, they may look to see, do you have something that addresses your services for homeless students, even though it doesn't have to be a strategy or an action step specifically for them. Okay. It just at least has an area that where you've stated them in a sentence or you've identified them underneath the strategy as one of your vulnerable youths.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, we will hang out. I will hang out till the time, especially don't be bashful. There's no question that we want to know what the questions are, because really that helps us kind of figure out what type of trainings we need to provide, the guidance we need to provide, and things that we need to make clear out in the field for everyone. Because sometimes what we might think makes sense to us, we're not out in the field, and we live in this all the time, whereas those of you that are out trying to apply this and use it in the district may read something that we've put out, and you may interpret it very different than what we'd intended. So
Diane, I have a question based on what she just mentioned about the one needs assessment. I'm cohort 1 as well, and we've done the plan and we've done everything. She mentioned fiscal resources. We don't have to do anything with fiscal resources yet, do we?
Yeah, you would go in and just estimate for each of the goals which of the funds that you would use. and then how much you think from those funds it would cost, you would use for those strategies. So it's just an estimate. We would expect to see very round numbers in there. Eventually, what the system will do is you'll start to build your budgets from those eventually. Like you've got these strategies, so this is what you thought it would cost. Now let's break it down and see what you need to budget to do it. But we're not at that with the new system, isn't here yet for that. But
okay, so with that being said, are you anticipating we should expect funding similar to what we had last year?
yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Base it on your previous year's funding, because they are just estimates.
Okay.
So those of you that are in cohort 1, as you work through the system, because we are at the process now where we're selecting our vendor to help us start building this system. So we hope to really start working with the vendor by this summer on building the new system. If there were anything that right now, as you've gone through this process, please be sure to share us with your insights on how it's working from your end. Of course, we'll continue to reach out and have those sessions as we build, because we want to build something that's really going to work and that really meets your needs, and it's something that you'll actually utilize and use in your across your district, in your buildings and in your district for your improvement. So we have a question about the one needs assessment. So every district is required to do the one needs assessment this year. There's no other option for a needs assessment now. The decision framework is gone completely. When you go into the planning tool now, there's not even a link to the needs assessment, because the needs assessment is now embedded right into the plan with each of the goals. So it's going to have what you've selected as your priority need. Your root cause analysis will be right there with it, as well as the other topic areas that you would need to address. So actually your needs assessment becomes the outline then for what your plan will address. And so when you think about your plan, think about the one needs assessment and that priority tab, that last page that you do in the one needs assessment, that is actually the first page of your plan, because that's where you set up your outline. So Angela, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi, Diane. I just wanted to, you asked about feedback for those in cohort 1. And the only thing that I would say is, like, we found that just involving all of the stakeholder groups that need to be involved in order to complete the one needs assessment really took much longer than what we anticipated. So those, having those questions as early as possible, I think, just because they are so varied and, really require a lot of involvement from outside people in order to get them answered. I think that would be helpful. We also ran into an issue with the reports from the one needs assessment not working properly for us. And I did report that, but I know when I reported it, I was told that, that districts maybe are not reporting when they're having issues with some of those things. So, just encouraging other people, if you're also having issues, to let somebody know, because, you know, our reports were not working properly.
Yeah, and we don't know about it. So, and unless we're told, we don't really, you know, because of our access,
Right.
we don't have district access. So we can
Right.
see, well, it's working on our end, but we don't see if it's not working for the districts on their end unless they let us know. So thanks for sharing that. Were they able to address your issue then with the reports, Angela?
Not yet, but I got a very timely response. So I was pleased with the response that I got, but no, as far as I'm aware, it still has not been resolved. But we were able to find a workaround, you know, for us. So it's okay for us. But I guess I was a little surprised when they said nobody had reported the issue, and they were glad that somebody had reported it. So I just want to encourage
and
other
that is
people
one
out
thing.
there.
Right. And I know that somebody said, I wish there was a printable view of the one needs assessment. With the report, there is a printable view. And it would be, there's a required questions tab in the one needs assessment report that you could actually go in and do a printable view of your required questions. So, so that would be one place that you could do that. But if you're having problems with it, yes, please go to the website for the one needs assessment or the email site, because that is monitored daily, and somebody should get back with you and then get with our IT team to see what's going on. So you should hear. Angela, if you don't hear or get anything with this week, could you send me an email so I can follow up on it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Diane.
All right. Thank you. And you know what, there is so much in that report that what the functions are, you know, that you're not going to know all of them. We don't even know all of them yet this year. We're learning all of them and what they can do and what they can't do. I will say that the committee with the one needs assessment is working on reducing the number of questions again, even though, because we have, and looking for redundancy so that if the question is asked underneath one priority need and then it's asked again under another priority need, that it would link those questions so you're not having to answer them twice, is one of the things they're looking at. They're also looking at, well, they're asking this same question in this way, and another one it's asked this way, but really they're getting at the same thing. Let's see if we can't get an agreement on how we want these questions and then get them linked, or at least even, you know, so that it pulls them into both places. So we are working at reducing those number of questions because for you. Another thing that I have often is districts say, well, we want a priority need or we want a goal on this, but it wasn't one of our required questions. I do recommend then that you go to the section that would address that area, and then you just go through those questions and it'll pull it over then for you to select. There is a one needs assessment structure document that's in the planning tool resources. It's available on the web page or in the document library, and it actually has an outline for each of the different topic areas and what are the priority needs underneath those topic areas, so that you can say, well, we want something on this priority need. Which section would we go to in the one needs assessment to answer questions on it? So it gives you a little bit of a map then too, if you're looking for a particular area you want questions on. And then we're always open to, if you can think of an area that isn't available that we may need to add to the one needs assessment, please let us know. I know that we had a district just yesterday, and I've already forwarded it to the team. It looks like the PBIS questions were only coming up at the district level. They weren't coming up for buildings. And I said, that's something that, you know, next year we need to see if we can't correct, because PBIS is a building program. I mean, the buildings each have their own plan for PBIS. So if they need to address student behaviors or their school climate and culture, and they need to address their PBIS program, and that's what they want to pull over, then they need to have access at the building levels to be able to do that. So that's already been forwarded. Participation certificates, Candace, if they want a participation certificates, do we do that for these monthly sessions? Do you know?
We do those, yes, thank you. I have a link to share with you, and that is completely my oversight. Let me get that to you. Actually, I will go ahead and put my email in the chat, so you can go ahead and email me, but if you're still around when I get this link in here, you can also just fill that out. But if you're interested in a certificate, please go ahead and email me as well.
Thank you, Candace.
Of course, thank you.
And that's something that we started this year as well, is providing these certification participations. I know those weren't provided for a lot of our sessions before, so I know how those certifications are very important for you to have to get your renewals, all those hours in. So, see any other questions or any other topics? Candace?
Yes.
Can you make a note to update the web page to reflect that June 30th date for self-surveys?
Yes, I can.
Instead of that May 31st.
June 30th self-survey.
I think you have access to it, don't you?
I'm one, yep, I got it. Yes, June 30th self-survey.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
All right, we have about 8 more minutes left, and I do appreciate all the questions and the participation during our session today. I hope it was helpful. And if you still have questions, or please feel free to ask. But thank you for joining us. I'll stay on until the end. Thank you, Chris. You're welcome, Karen. Thanks, Kim. I think we're down to mostly federal programs people here. Hey, Elizabeth, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm gonna be sending you a bunch of calendar invites here soon.
Oh, I'm gonna feel so popular and important.
Oh, and it'll give you a chance to kind of work with everyone in their different areas. So
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I've just got to buckle down and get them all scheduled and sent out. But
well, you've been a pretty darn busy person for last week alone. My gosh.
Yeah, last week was really kind of, I broke one of my rules.
Which one?
I don't usually do an